Well, the race is on to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister and leader of the federal Liberal Party, with Liberal members set for a vote in early March. Joining me today is the former Deputy Prime Minister and the former Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be with you, Rob.
Let's start with what you announced today, an affordability plan. You've got a cut to the second income tax bracket. You have a cap on credit card interest rates, shrinkflation for groceries, and a break on GST for first-time home buyers. How is this going to help folks with the cost of living crisis that we keep seeing here?
And can I add one more thing that's in there, because it's close to my heart, which is a plan to have 100,000 more childcare spaces by requiring government buildings to give space to daycares. That is going to be especially helpful for people in BC. BC is the first province that did a daycare deal with me and the federal government. And one of the things that we realized very quickly is, because property prices are so high in BC, property costs are a particular constraint. So for anyone who has kids or grandchildren, that's going to be an important element.
At this time of budget deficits, you were the finance minister. We have a big deficit in British Columbia here as well. Can we afford the cost of living sort of packages that you're putting on the table? Is there any sort of price tag that comes with all this assistance?
We definitely can afford it. And what I said when I put out the plan today is that we will make this affordable by cutting the size of the federal government. And I think there are a lot of efficiency savings that can be made. Public servants are important. They do a lot of important work, but the federal bureaucracy has grown a lot. We need to bring it down in size and use technologies like AI.
You've sat across the table from Donald Trump, who has sort of sideswiped the political agenda here with his tariff talks. You've been eye to eye with him. What do you think is different about him this time around as we try to grapple how to deal with him?
Well, a lot is the same. I think the essential motivation and the central ideas are the same, but this time he is better organized. And this time he has a team to help him make the US government do what he wants. What does that mean for Canada? It means we have to be even tougher and even stronger, even more self-confident. I've been so inspired, Rob, by the way that Canadians across the country get that. And, Canadians have been really clear. We do not want to be the 51st state. Our sovereignty is not up for negotiation. Capitulation is not an option. And I really believe that if we are united, strong, and smart, we can win this just the way we did last time when I was leading the fight against Donald Trump. I think it's going to be harder this time, but we are experienced. I am experienced. I know how to do it. And I think the country is ready. And I think there are opportunities we can seize from this moment of crisis to make Canada even stronger, to make ourselves less dependent on the United States in the long run.
Our premiers are heading down to Washington, D.C. Later this week, I think on Wednesday. They have mentioned that they feel like they need to step up in sort of the vacuum that's been created by the race that you're in for prime minister. What do you say to them as they kind of go down and try to advocate for the country on their own?
I say, I love you guys, and I'm looking forward to working with you. I was thinking about this interview I was going to do with you, and I had a really warm memory of John Horgan. In the middle of the NAFTA fight, I remember being in a hotel room in Washington. I didn't know him all that well, and he called me up just to say, "You go, girl. The country is with you." And I do think, my motto on this is united, strong, and smart. Unity starts with the provinces and territories working closely with the federal government. As prime minister, that is what I would do. I've done it before. I did it during COVID. BC is a great partner for us. And I love the things that Premier Eby has been saying about being strong, about fighting back, about using this as an opportunity to diversify BC and Canada's trade, about using this as an opportunity to get critical mineral projects fast-tracked, get them moving. I am so excited about helping BC do all of those things.
What do you think of our premier, David Eby, and sort of how he's been handling the Trump issue. You mentioned being pleased at what you're hearing from him, but also that he's, survived the provincial election here. He has another term. What's your relationship been like with him, and how do you sort of view his leadership?
Look, it's not for me to give Premier Eby a report card. That's for the people of BC. But I will say I have enjoyed working with him immensely. He is a person whose partnership I have valued very, very much on a number of issues. And I really have admired the way that he is standing up right now for BC and for Canada. He's been very clear. We are not going to capitulate. We have to hit back. I totally agree with him. And I really look forward to winning this leadership race and to working with him on that.
We have had some controversial drug policies in British Columbia the last few years. Safe supply expansion, decriminalization, both required partnerships with Ottawa to make them a reality, and both have kind of been controversial in this province. What's your stance on them? Do you support them? Would you continue down that path if you're the Prime Minister and British Columbia is looking at continuing those policies or altering them in the future?
So, Rob, you're a dad. I'm a mom. And that's where I start on these issues. And I start about thinking about, I want my kids to be safe. I want them, and I want all of Canada's kids to be safe on any street in any community in the country. And I think if we start from that perspective, an issue which can be complicated in a lot of ways becomes a lot simpler. And I have had some great conversations with Premier Eby about that. I think obviously we need to take a science-based approach, and we need to think about, we want our communities safe. We need our kids and our streets and our families to be safe. And, I think the people of BC and the leaders of BC, they know what BC needs. As Prime Minister, I would really be a listener and listen to what the people and the leaders of BC want to do on this incredibly painful issue.
I had Justin Trudeau on CHEK News a few months ago, and the question to him was, did we go too far too fast on drug policy for a lot of people who are sort of concerned about what they're seeing in downtown Vancouver and downtown Victoria and other sort of cities across the province? What's your take on if we kind of went too far too fast on our drug policies?
Yes, we did.
And why did we do that, and how do we address it, do you think?
Well, I think the way that we've discussed, I think we have to put at the center of things safety for people, safety for families, safety for children. We need our streets and our communities to be places where people feel safe to go. And if we find ourselves in a situation where that is not the case, we're doing something wrong. I think our approach needs to be really led by compassion, and it needs to be evidence-based. And above all, I really think Canada works best when we work together, when we listen to people in their own communities saying what they need and want, when we listen to municipal leaders, when we listen to premiers. And as Prime Minister, my focus would be on doing that, because I know that's what works. And also, I know we face this big external threat. This is a critical moment. And I would work together with the provinces, with BC, the way we did during COVID. And I think that's how Canada works best.
We have hundreds of Canadian Forces service personnel here in British Columbia. CFB Esquimalt, CFB Comox are big bases. You've mentioned getting us to that 2% of GDP defense spending target from NATO within a couple of years, and then also 50% higher wages for service personnel. Can you explain sort of what you're trying to accomplish with both of those, and how the service personnel could expect to see those changes if you're Prime Minister?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I was hoping you would. I think Canadians all recognize the world has become a more dangerous place. Canada has to be more self-reliant, and we have to be more prepared to defend ourselves and take care of ourselves. Doing that does mean we have to spend more on defense. But I want to be sure we're spending that money on our own people and our own companies, and first and foremost on Canada's brave women and men in uniform. If if we want to be able to defend ourselves, we have to properly treat the people who are doing the job. And that's what I would do as Prime Minister. We need them now more than ever, and we need to respect them and offer them really great lives. We need to say, you are the front line of standing up for Team Canada, and you should have a good salary.
Okay. The main competitor that you have in the race it appears to be sort of Mark Carney. He's coming from outside the caucus. You've been in it for many years, helping kind of build the policies and record that you're running on. How are you handling this sort of criticism from folks who say you kind of represent some of the policies that you're now trying to change, and you may be the sort of status quo candidate? What do you say to folks who say that to you?
Well, I actually think I am the outsider candidate right now. I am the candidate who is not the Ottawa establishment candidate. And I'm proud of that. I am glad to be running a grassroots campaign, and I am spending my time going across the country, small towns, small neighborhoods, talking directly to Liberals. I'll also say to you, Rob, I think it's really important for us as Liberals to be proud of the great things we've done. I am so proud of daycare, $10 a day daycare, something we were able to do because of a great partnership with the province of BC. This is transformational for young families. It is transformational for women. It's a program we should be proud of. It's a program we should say to Canadians, Pierre Poilievre is going to take this away from you. Don't let him do it. We should be proud of how we handled Donald Trump. That is the clear and present danger today. I led the effort to handle him. He's put steel and aluminum tariffs back on Canada. When I was foreign minister leading the charge on steel and aluminum tariffs, I got those tariffs lifted without any concessions at all. I know how to handle him. That experience is really valuable to Canada today. And the final thing I'll say, Rob, is I've been elected 4 times by Canadians. I have a seat in the House of Commons. I have the democratic mandate to stand up in the House of Commons and speak for the government. I have the democratic mandate to stand up with international leaders, including Donald Trump. I think facing voters directly and having the authority that comes from that is really important. And that's one of the things that I offer to Liberals and to Canadians in this race.
Great. Thank you. Just before I let you go, any BC connections? You know, in BC, we're very sensitive about, Ottawa kind of ignoring us. Do you have any sort of BC connections, island connections, time you've spent here during your life?
Well, I am a Westerner. I grew up in the Peace Country, which is right next to BC, northwestern Alberta, northeastern BC. And as a kid, some of my most cherished memories are coming with my mom and my sister in the summertime, well, actually in the springtime, to Vancouver Island, a magical place.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Great to be with you.
Take care.